Well, hello from Charleston, South Carolina, where I am joined by ABC News, Candace Smith, Ryan Struyk. I'm Brad Mielke, and if you can't tell, we are live in a horse carriage right now in historic Charleston, South Carolina, as we get ready for a big debate tonight between Republicans as they are coming to town as we speak. Right now, we're getting a nice little view of the city. Let me just quickly turn the camera around right here and just show you what I'm looking at our trusty tour guide, Dave. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well.
And this is our trusty horse over here, Elwood. Elwood, how are you? He sounds great, I think. And this is the cityscape that is just so beautiful in this town that we're in, with some incredible history. Dave is going to be talking a little bit about that. And right now, before we get straight to the ruthless presence, as we start to talk about what we're looking for tonight. So, Candace, Ryan, what do you guys find sort of interesting storylines as we go into debate night?
It's going to be an interesting night for sure. Here in the Low Country, we have all the candidates lined up. First of all, Rand Paul's not going to be on the main stage and is now protesting the debate. He's not going to be here. He's going to be in New York, so that's fascinating. Then you have the Cruz and Trump matchup, which I think, you know, you're our poll guy. You know better than anyone, but that's going to be a fierce battle there for sure. Trump has been bringing up Ted Cruz's birther status, his nationality, which doesn't really seem to be an issue among voters, but certainly will be an issue tonight.
Right, exactly, Candace. I think Cruz and Trump are the two candidates to watch tonight. We have this crucial first-in-the-nation contest in Iowa less than 3 weeks away, and they're really neck and neck there, and that's going to determine the momentum for the rest of the race.
Is Cruz the guy with the target on his back, or is it Donald Trump still, or is it one of these governors that you've been following all over the place, Candace? I mean, who's got the target sign right on their back?
Well, as much as we want to say that Donald Trump has the target on his back, I don't think we've really seen that. I think a lot of candidates have been pretty loath to go after him. The candidate who I cover for a living, your ABC's Jeb Bush stalker, is one of the only candidates that we've seen that consistently goes after Donald Trump. So I think that you're going to see a lot of matchups between the two. Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio will probably go at it. As you said, the governors, Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, John Kasich, they'll probably go at it because right now they're in a fight to remain viable. Everyone that we've said both in Iowa and in New Hampshire is saying that they're not necessarily fighting to win New Hampshire or win Iowa outright. They're just trying to beat each other.
Well, and there's a reason, Candace, why candidates are hesitant to go after Donald Trump. You know,
sure.
It hasn't worked. I mean, look at Bobby Jindal went crazy against Trump, and he's out. Rick Perry's out, and even Jeb Bush, you know, is having really limited success. So I think Ted Cruz is the one who candidates are seeing as a real threat, as a real contender for the nomination. You see that in advertising, Rubio going after Cruz in Iowa, other candidates really targeting Ted Cruz. I think Ted Cruz is kind of the one to beat, and I think you'll see that on the debate stage.
Well, and, you know, Ted Cruz has had the entire birther issue be a thing over the last week, but now a brand new thing coming to Ted Cruz's doorstep. The New York Times reporting that Ted Cruz got a large loan back when he was running for Senate from Goldman Sachs, where his wife actually worked, and that was never disclosed on FEC forms. What are you guys' bets as to how soon we'll see that brought up tonight?
You know, it's sort of tricky to say. I think the thing that, you know, as our deputy political director, Shannon Walsh, noted, the thing that's more damaging is that he sort of weaved this tale of him and his wife, Heidi, sort of liquidating all their assets and running this, you know, what became the darling of the Tea Party run. And the fact that he's actually accepting money from the big banks, I think that's what's going to be more damaging than the fact that the complicated business of him not disclosing it.
Right, and Ted Cruz has said that this was kind of a technical error. The loan was released in a personal finance statement under state law, so it had been disclosed publicly, not in a federal form, but in a state form. And he's kind of saying, you know, this was like kind of a technical filing error, and we'll have to see whether other candidates and ultimately the voters buy that.
Yeah, it's interesting in that, you know, when you talk to voters around the country, they don't necessarily really care about the minutia of political rules day to day. They don't necessarily care about the difference between your super PAC versus your campaign and what they're doing, but they do care, Candace, about that narrative that you weave. If you're an up-by-the-bootstraps candidate who's really anti-establishment, Goldman Sachs is not exactly the company you want to hear that's backing your horse.
And I think this is going to add it into Donald Trump's own narrative, right? That he can't be bought, that he doesn't need to have relationships with these big banks because he's self-financed. So I think that's going to be a potentially more damage it gets at, that he can wield against Ted Cruz.
And then what about the undercard debate? So we have Rand Paul, who's apparently not showing up. Does that mean Carly Fiorina basically gets the stage to herself, or
Especially since Lindsey Graham's not there.
Oh, and Lindsey Graham was so much fun to have on the trail.
For sure.
Right. Well, Rick Santorum and Mike Huckabee will be the only two candidates joining Carly Fiorina. So it'll be the smallest undercard stage we've had, only 3 candidates, and it's yet to be seen. Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum, of course, the last 2 winners of the Iowa caucus, but they're really just in low single digits in polling, haven't been able to pick up any momentum as voters. I think are kind of looking for a fresh face and somebody new who they haven't seen before.
And debate stages is where Fiorina flourishes. We've seen several times that she's gotten a bump after a good, strong debate performance. The question is, how much does that play into her polls, and how much does that play into how much voters see them as being president? You in New Hampshire know a lot of people that we've talked to say that people are impressed by Fiorina, but does that mean they will vote for her to be president? That's what we have to wait and see.
Yeah, exactly. So as I've been covering New Hampshire for the last several months, by the way, weather here in South Carolina is a perfect, high 50s, you guys?
I'm so happy not to have on my bubble coat right now.
Absolutely gorgeous. There is not 6 inches of snow on the ground. In fact, we're looking at palm trees, and as we go into sort of the main street here, I'll just give you the shot of, look at that, you guys.
Right,
Unbelievable. And so, but yes, in New Hampshire, the story has really become that this is the Donald Trump show, and that it is his race to lose. In Iowa, we see Ted Cruz looking as sort of the favorite, although Donald Trump is sort of clawing back. And I don't know what that means for South Carolina. I guess Iowa will sort of tell the story of what will happen coming up in the next few weeks.
And I think, whoever gets Lindsey Graham's endorsement is going to be actually crucial, because people may not have supported Lindsey Graham's candidacy, but he's still largely beloved here in South Carolina. So I think whoever he puts his support against, you've seen a lot of the establishment candidates already sort of taking his. Jeb Bush has picked up a lot of his backers. So I think South Carolina is going to be a little bit of a wild card. Very interesting.
And another person to watch in South Carolina is, of course, Governor Nikki Haley, who gave the response to the State of the Union address. I was just talking to some top Republican officials at their winter meeting here about how much they love Nikki Haley. They think she's a great vice presidential pick for whoever ends up winning the nomination. And her endorsement here could go a long way toward boosting either Trump or Cruz, or even somebody like Marco Rubio.
I don't think Trump, right?
Well, not Trump.
So I was about to say, so Nikki Haley, in her response, basically called out Donald Trump, and she admitted as much, that she was calling out Donald Trump for deteriorating the tone of this entire campaign. And then for somebody who's come on as sort of the de facto front runner for the VP race, she's certainly not endearing herself to her potential future bosses when you talk about Jeb Bush or Marco Rubio.
Yeah. She mentioned, as you guys have all noticed, she mentioned that she differed from Marco Rubio on amnesty, as she said. She mentioned that she differed from Jeb Bush on Common Core, even though she has said that she texts both men quite frequently, including Chris Christie.
Yeah. So let's actually, just as long as we're on these gorgeous streets, I should really just turn the camera around here. So where are we right now?
Right now we're on Church Street for that church up in the middle of the street in front of us. It's one of the oldest streets in the city. It goes back to the late 1600s when they were first developing here. They being the English mostly, but really right in the center of the very oldest part of Charleston today. Just north of that church, to a few blocks behind you, in a really small area over here, was where the city got its start. It was a fort when it got started, protecting the English from the Spanish, the French, and the natives that were around them. And you're kind of in the northern edge of where that fort would have been.
Whoop. And so what can you tell me about Charleston, by the way? I mean, it's a small town, but it attracts a ton of people, including this time of year, a lot of political folks.
It has recently grown to be one of the top destinations in the world. And I refer to it as a small city or a big town. It has a lot of big city attractions and activities, but it doesn't have the population that goes along with it. The theaters, the restaurants, the galleries, that is something that is bigger than what the people of, the population of the city is, essentially.
Do you mind if I nerd out a little here? I mean, the architecture here is just gorgeous. When did this place sort of become what it is today?
Most of the buildings in this part of town are representing late 18th, early 19th century design and architecture, what would have been the end of the Georgian period and the early Adamesque. The little pink building on your right there is arguably among the oldest buildings in the city, possibly 300 years old or older. A sailor's tavern, an art gallery, and now for sale. There's a lot of different things in its history. But a lot of these buildings would have been the apartments and the warehouses and the counting rooms. This is a busy port for a long time, and this is where a lot of the sailors and dock workers carried out their lives, both their working lives and their into their working day lives.
Now your working life then is driving this carriage all over the place here, right? So they still got horse-drawn carriages here. I'm going to show you what we've been riding in for the last several minutes here. So Dave, who is this in front of us here?
This is Elwood in front of us, an 11-year-old Percheron. He's been with us about 6 years now. And he was an Amish plow horse in Ohio before he was doing this. And that's what most of the animals you'll find in Charleston were before they were carriage horses.
Oh, so this is his second career.
Second career for 98% of the four-legged workers involved in the industry. And it is one of the largest commercial carriage industries in the country. So we send out 40,000 tours a year in the city. And we're one of the big draws for a lot of the people that are coming here.
Yeah,
it's one of the more popular ways to tour the city.
Yeah, Dave working for Classic Carriage, and this, you know, we passed by several different carriage companies. It's sort of this big thing, and this is even the low season, right? Even though I saw.
This is a slow season for us. This is by far one of our slowest months out of the entire year, but we're year-round. Every day of the year but Christmas, we've got carriages out here going and showing the city off, and people want to see it. And we're happy to have them.
And right now, it is sort of a busy time of the week, at least, if not a busy time of the year, as we have lots of Republican candidates, but also Republican staffers coming into town. And Ryan, you know, you were at this Republican winter rules meeting, right? This is sort of like the like when the baseball owners all get together for their winter meetings. They go over rule changes, they go over trades. There's all sorts of backroom deals being made. Is that what it's like in politics?
Well, these are the ultimate Republican insiders, Brad. I mean, every state has what are called RNC delegates who sit on the Republican National Committee. These are kind of the top guns of the party, kind of like power wielding, trying to figure out, you know, how the convention's going to be run. Everybody's kind of heading up different presidential campaigns, and one of the focuses of this week's meeting is the possibility for a contested convention. You know, we were talking about Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, and what you noticed in those conversations is that there's no consensus around one candidate, right? It's really splintered, and if no candidate can get a majority of the delegates, then we're looking at a potential floor fight at a big meeting in July called the Republican Convention. And those are kind of the rules and the logistics of that folks are going to be talking about.
How would that even work? Is that something that you can even explain in 30 seconds, or is that what this entire week of meetings is about?
I'll explain it in one word: chaos. I was just talking with committeemen from Michigan about how, you know, people are having serious conversations about this for the first time, and it's really unprecedented. It hasn't happened in 100 years that we haven't had a nominee at the convention, and that's a very real possibility. They tell me they don't think it's likely, but they think it's possible.
Got it. Well, let's just turn the camera around. Just resume briefly our sort of round table here. As you know, Donald Trump, what does he have to do tonight? Is it just about sort of staying above the fray, or is he really, you think, looking to present himself as that Ted Cruz alternative once again? I mean, he's trying to stay out of it, or is he trying to get into it?
I don't know if he's ever tried to present himself as an alternative to Ted Cruz. I think he's tried to present himself as an alternative to the mainstream, right? So to the governors, to the Marco Rubios. I think he's tried to sort of cull this dissatisfaction, this affectation that a lot of voters feel. And what's strange and what you've noticed is that no matter what Donald Trump says, no matter who he appears to disparage, his base just seems to love him even more. And so he doesn't have to talk about policy. He doesn't have to get into the nitty-gritty details of the plans that he wants to release. And so I actually think this might be an interesting time for him because he will have so much time to talk, right?
Yeah.
So he will actually have to expound on those ideas and not just sort of the 10-second soundbite that he's used to and that he really flourishes in.
Yeah, that's right. Candidates getting 90 seconds tonight from Fox Business Network. As we've only got 7 candidates on stage, we've got 2 hours to fill. So the organizers that said, let's give them some time to talk. And it'll be interesting to see, you know, people like Ted Cruz who love to go on at length. Marco Rubio can easily spout off for 90 seconds.
Chris Christie.
Oh, Chris Christie would love it, right? But there are guys that probably might be better, maybe Donald Trump, at speaking in 30-second zingers. But we'll see if that's the case tonight.
Exactly. And you know, Ted Cruz, we haven't really seen Donald Trump completely take the gloves off with Ted Cruz, but it's been a more gentle, subtle reminder to voters and the press about kind of these lingering questions that have been in the media for the last week or two. Kind of, you know, his birthright, or his like citizenship questions around that, and now questions about the loan. You know, Donald Trump just kind of planting the seed, not taking the gloves off, but just reminding voters that it's there. I think he does, you know, he recognizes that, you know, it's important to win Iowa, and Cruz is his biggest threat there. He's not just going to let it go unanswered.
All right. Well, I think that's where we're going to leave the conversation right now, but we are going to keep enjoying ourselves here in Charleston, South Carolina. Our thanks to Dave, our many thanks to Elwood up there in front, and
he's the real MVP.
Yeah, he's the real champion of all this. We'll try to save him a seat inside the debate space. I don't know if he's going to get in, but we certainly will be, and we will have an entire pregame for you as we lead in to tonight's 2 different debates here on ABC News, ABC News Digital. Until then, for Candace Smith, Ryan Struyk, I'm ABC's Brad Mielke. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.